Hey everybody, it's ex Bethelite here. Um, this is my first live stream. My first introductory video was just a recording. I found it took a while to upload, so I'm going to try to do the live stream here and see if it loads quicker and it gets out there quick, in a much easier manner. So I wanted to talk today about baptism and shunning. Um, kind of relate my experience with it, you know, my baptism when that happened, what age I was, and really what's going on today with it, in regards to the Jehovah's Witness religion, the practice, and the encouragement of baptism, and then the practice of shunning. There's not a lot of religious groups that practice it. It's a pretty tough thing to do to get your members to shun other family members. Usually, obviously, that's why the only groups that are really successful at getting their members to do that are cults. So, hence why the Jehovah's Witness religion, has been uh, called a cult so many times in the past. I mean, even when I was a young witness youth and I would go preaching, I used to hear that all the time from people at the door. Yeah, I heard you guys are a cult, and of course we would, defend that right away. No, no, we're not a cult. Cults are ran by individual, uh, narcissistic leaders, and we don't have one leader. Our leader is Christ, and we went into the typical spiel. Um, but that's obviously not true. Cults can be led by more than one person. It doesn't need just one person to be a cult, but there are other characteristics that we're going to review in this live stream that make, how do you identify a cult? And there's characteristics of identification. So, um, first off, I wanted to look up real quick, and I did check this. And I'm in the United States. Obviously, in other countries, the law and the age requirement might be different, but in the United States and in most states, the legal age to enter into a contract is the age of 18 years old. So you have to be 18 to sign a contract, verbal or otherwise. So, I mean, there are some contracts that are verbal as well, but um, in most states and in basically the United States, you have to be 18 years of age. So, um, baptism. So that leads right into what happens when someone gets baptized. So my own personal story was, um, I was 15 years old when I guess I don't think I ever showed interest in being baptized. I don't think I went, oh yeah, I need to get baptized. I didn't have that, like, it didn't spontaneously erupt in me that I should get baptized. I think what happened was my parents, especially my mother, was pushing the issue of getting baptized. Um, and I think a lot of it was, it's in the literature. The peer pressure from the Watchtower literature is, you know, it's pretty apparent. There's lots of Watchtower articles that talk about baptism, and it never says in there, oh, you have to be this age to be baptized, but it just says that you have to be of a reasoning mind. Well, you could argue someone at 18 doesn't have a reasoning mind. I mean, I don't think I really started to understand the world and understand my place in it until I was in my mid 30s. Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a couple young kids that figure out that this is what they want to do the rest of their life, and they absolutely know with 100% certainty that, you know what they're entering into. They fully understand it. They fully acknowledge it. But for the most part, there's no way at that age, um, that you can really fully understand what you're doing at, especially at 8, 9, 10. Um, there's no way that you can fully comprehend the consequences. So I was 15. I think the convention that I got baptized, it was a circuit assembly, um, where they did, live baptisms. I think there were maybe 30 or 40 of us that got baptized at the circuit assembly. My sister was baptized. I think she was 3 years younger, so she might have been. I think she was 13, right around 12, 13 years old. I was just turned 16, so when I did the questions and I was considering it, I was 15 years old. I was absolutely pressured by my parents to do it. It was just absolutely expected of me. That's my recollection of it. And I got baptized along with another friend of mine. He was around the same age as me at 16. Um, so yeah, I remember it being, I felt a sense of importance, right? Because there's attention on you. Oh, everyone's so happy and congratulating you, and it makes you feel at the time you're doing it that, oh, you did this great thing, fantastic. What you don't realize is that you're, you don't really understand the scope of what you've done until later in life, which I fully realized it. So, um, you're not 18 years old. There's no, you certainly aren't of legal age to make a decision that is going to impact you the rest of your life, right? Um, and it's very common today to see witness youths get baptized 8, 9, 10 years old. I mean, they're not even in high school and they're getting baptized. And then all of a sudden, years and years down the road, something happens. Maybe at 18, they make a big mistake, or they just decide they want to leave home and don't want to be a witness anymore. And then all of a sudden, their family is forced to shun them. So the baptism topic goes right into shunning because if you think about it, the witnesses today are even being told to shun, even if someone's not baptized. This is really where things are heating up. The cult is in full force right now, where they are practicing what's called soft shunning. So soft shunning is they don't outright tell the parents you can't, you can't talk to your 16-year-old because he doesn't want to get baptized, but there is absolute pressure from the congregation. The family is viewed in a negative light. Oh, they have spiritual problems. They're a spiritually weak family. There is absolute pressure from the congregation, from elders. Um, it's happening. I mean, I witnessed it when I was in my 30s. When I was a ministerial servant, I would go on shepherding calls. I absolutely saw that happen where, they had maybe a 15, 16-year-old who didn't want to get baptized. And we would do a shepherding call in the family, an elder and myself, like, what's wrong with your son? It's completely ridiculous. So baptism, if someone wants to make a decision, they really need to be an adult, um, fully aware of consequences of the decision, right? That's the other thing. Even people that are adults that get baptized in this religion aren't fully aware of the consequence of the decision. Um, if they get kicked out, if they decide they don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore, I don't think they fully comprehend that it means that the rest of your family, aunts, uncles, mother, father, brother, sister, whatever, they can no longer speak to you. They cut you off as though you are dead. That's the type of shunning we're talking about. It's hardcore, and it's very, very destructive. And by the way, that's one of the main characteristics of a cult, is the creation of a destructive element in the religion. And there's no question that's a destructive element. Being told you can't talk to your son, daughter, mother, father, it's a terrible thing to ask someone to do. It's not loving. It's certainly, if you believe in God as love, um, there's no way you can believe in shunning. In fact, I love when witnesses like to talk about the prodigal son, because the prodigal son is the biggest evidence of why shunning is not a biblical teaching at all. I love that story because it really highlights it's actually shunning, it's anti-shunning, that story, right? So think about it. The story is a son receives his inheritance early from his father. He requests it. He takes his inheritance and he goes off and he lives it up, right? He drinks, he has fornication with a bunch of whores. He's he's doing all these bad things with his inheritance, right? He's an adult. It's not a wise decision, obviously, to do all that, and he ends up obviously in a bad state where he's lost all of his money. He's tending to pigs. He's hungry and he's wanting to eat the food the pigs are eating, right? So he's in a very, very low, deplorable state, a state of being, right? Sort of like if you were homeless in New York right now, where it's freezing cold weather, it would not be a fun situation to be in. It would be a very desperate situation. So the prodigal son, he reasons in his mind, hey, I'm in a terrible way here. Maybe I can go back and ask to be a hired man for for my father. He didn't say I'm going to go back and be his son again. He just was like, I just want to be hired back as one of the hired men, right? So he didn't say he was humbly going to his father and asking for forgiveness. That never comes up. All the reason he went to his father was because he was hungry, right? He wasn't seeking repentance. There's no mention at all in that parable of repentance. There wasn't, not one mention of it. There's no word. Look at the original Hebrew. There is no mention, or in the Greek, there's no mention of the word repentance. So the son didn't go to his father and say, "Hey, I'm sorry. Can you take me back?" That's not what happened. The son said, "Hey, I'd like to just come back and work for you as a hired man, just as any stranger off the street would do." So what did the father do? He immediately had them bring clothes for him. He clothed him. He brought him in. He had a feast. He had a bunch of livestock killed and slaughtered for a feast. So he embraced his son without question. He didn't say, "Hey, what did you do with my money?" He didn't say, "Hey, what have you been doing the last year or two?" None of that came up. None of it came up. Didn't ask him what he did wrong. Didn't give him the third degree. Just embraced him, welcomed him into his home through a feast and a party, and accepted his son back. So I don't know how somebody can take that parable and say that, um, and at all try to say that shunning is a biblical teaching. That parable goes against the teaching and the practice of shunning. Absolutely goes against it. Um, whenever I hear people talk about, oh, shunning is biblical, all you have to do is say, well, then square that with Jesus' parable, because the son was not ever repentant, did not seek his father's forgiveness, didn't even admit that he did anything wrong. All he said was, "I'd like to come back and work as one of your hired men," and the father said, accepted him back as his son. There was no, it did not. There was nothing in there that says that um, that they that he gave his forgiveness. Nothing. It just, you obviously knew he forgave his son because of his actions. But the son didn't ask for forgiveness, right? He didn't. So again, shunning is not a biblical teaching. In fact, it's a very, very destructive practice. And if you look up real quick, characteristics of a cult, let's do that real quick. Yeah. So there's lots of source material on this. Um, but I like a very short list called the seven signs that you might be in a cult. Number one is opposing critical thinking, which is obviously in the Jehovah's Witness religion. If you oppose any teaching that comes down from the governing body, you're automatically labeled an apostate. Or if you even start to question it, the word apostate starts to come up right away. So, uh, absolutely no opposition to their teachings. Any critical thinking is completely banned. Completely banned. Number two, isolating members and penalizing them for leaving. That's shunning. So, the number two characteristic of a cult is the practice of shunning, isolating the member, penalizing them, um, using their family as emotional blackmail. That's why if you look at the disfellowshipped Jehovah's Witnesses that come back into the religion, they really only come back to gain a relationship with their family again. Which, if you think about it, is pretty terrible. You're supposed to have in the family unit. You're supposed to have unconditional love. There is nothing that your son or daughter could do that would really keep you from having a relationship with them. If you think about it, there's people on death row right now where their mothers come and visit them, right? Um, and these are people that did very, very vile things, maybe mass murderers. They'll still have uh, a family that doesn't abandon them. The one example that comes to mind was Jeffrey Dahmer. His father still had a relationship with him until he died, even though he was in prison. And yes, he acknowledged that he did terrible things, but he still loved his son. He still wanted to have a relationship with him. So again, isolating and penalizing the member for leaving, that's the second characteristic of a cult, and a big one, really. Number three is emphasizing special doctrines outside of Scripture. Um, that, I mean, you can debate that with Jehovah's Witness doctrines, but there's several that come to mind that um, are definitely not supported by scriptures. Number four is seeking inappropriate loyalty to their leaders. Um, that is an absolute characteristic with the governing body. The governing body can basically say anything they want. They can change their viewpoint on prophecy, which they did with the generations teaching. They for years and years, and I remember as a young witness youth, we would cite it all the time. This generation will by no means pass away. The generation from 1914, those, and I remember at the time, it wasn't just people born in 1914. And it had to be people of a reasoning mind. So somebody at the age of 15, 16, whatever they consider to be a human being that had the ability to reason. That's a pretty broad spectrum. Some people can, there might be some kids that at 10 or 11 could understand and reason really well and are really intelligent. Maybe some at 15, 16, well, let's say 16 is the number. So that generation had to be 16 years old in 1914. It said that generation would by no means pass away before all these things would occur. Well, they're all gone. That generation is long gone, died many years ago. So, of course, this became a major problem for the Jehovah's Witness leaders. They realized right away that they better come up with an ulterior reasoning to cover that prophecy that they had written for so many years in their literature. And so that when that came out, there were a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that became inactive, left the religion, disavowed their membership with the religion, or what they call disassociated, because that was a clear changing of doctrine, that if these men are holy, spirit anointed men that get their, get their information directly from Jehovah God, then obviously that mistake should not have been made. So, yeah, that's a big characteristic of one of those 7 signs: seeking inappropriate loyalty to the leaders. And number 5 is dishonoring the family unit. So again, the congregation is viewed as the family unit, basically, with Jehovah's Witnesses, and you really are not allowed to dishonor or bring reproach. They talk about that all the time as a Jehovah's Witness, bringing reproach on Jehovah's name, right? That's a major thing that's emphasized all the time at their meetings. So that's another characteristic. Number 6, crossing biblical boundaries of behavior versus sexual purity and personal ownership. Yeah, so basically trying to control people's behavior. A elder asking a young one if they masturbate, that is something that is so inappropriate. It's none of their business. And even inquiring of somebody's sexual activity from a religious leader, somebody in authority within a congregational environment, is so out of line. It's completely ridiculous and out of line. Again, crossing those boundaries of behavior. That is a huge characteristic of a cult. And the Jehovah's Witnesses violate that in spades. They violate that all the time. Number 7 is separation from the church. So obviously, if you leave the faith, you leave and say you're not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, that is a characteristic where you are penalized by the religion, and you pay a price. So that, again, falls in line with the 7 characteristics that that you're in a cult. So, I think it's the baptism and the shunning go hand in hand. First of all, you wouldn't be like, to this day, if I never got baptized at 16, if I had the wherewithal at 16 years old to go, stop, I'm not going to get baptized. I don't know if this is for me. I'm going to wait until the age that Jesus was, right? Jesus was 30 years old when he was baptized, right? So, hey, maybe I should wait till I'm 30. How do you think that would have gone over in the congregational arrangement? Telling my parents and telling the elders, yeah, I'm going to wait till I'm 30 years old, and then I'll think about it and consider it. I'll give it some consideration when I turn 30, whether I'm going to get baptized or not. Yeah, that would not have gone over well, right? There's no way that would have flown. So again, if I had the wherewithal to not get baptized, I would be viewed as a what would be the term that they would use? I'm trying to think. I haven't been a Jehovah's Witness for a long time, so I have to think in the mindset of what a witness. They have their own language and terminology. I would be considered a rebellious youth. I think that would be the term. I would be labeled a rebellious youth. They may even have a talk, not naming me directly, but basically everything but naming. If I was in that congregation and I was 17, 18 years old, not getting baptized, and so of course they would view that as you're not being a spiritual person. They may even have a talk recognizing you, letting the congregation know, hey, this person may not be good association, right? So that was another thing. I used to hear those special needs talks, where they would, who knows what it was. I mean, you can kind of figure out, who they're talking about. I mean, most people could kind of figure that out. Or the room, there's more gossip in a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall than anywhere else. They love to gossip. That's a huge, and of course, they're always counseled about not gossiping, but that's everybody does it. It's rampant. I used to see it all the time. So if they have a special needs talk, um, right away, it wouldn't take long before everybody would be talking about, well, who are they talking about? Who is that special needs talk directed at? So let's say I had the wherewithal to not get baptized at 16. I'm 18, 19, 20. I move out of the house. I go and maybe I go to college. Maybe I just live on my own. I live my life. I never got baptized. Technically, to this day, my parents could have a relationship with me. I'm sure it wouldn't be a warm and fuzzy relationship like they have now with their other son and daughter, my brother and sister, who are still in that religion. But they could at least talk to me. They wouldn't be made to feel guilty about coming to see me or visiting. Maybe if I joined them on vacations with the rest of the family, I could do it. Right? There's nothing in their rules that would ban them from doing that. So if I had never made that decision at 16 years old, today I could have some type of relationship with my parents and my brother and sister. Probably not a great relationship, probably a strained relationship, because they're going to be thinking about is, hey, why isn't he a Jehovah's Witness? He's a worldly person. I would be viewed as the worldly person, right? So I think about that a lot, because I have no relationship with my parents, my brother and sister. We don't talk, and they do shun me. Usually about once a year, right around my birthday. Of course, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate birthday. There's no scriptural reason for it. So that's the other thing. If you ever get a Jehovah's Witness at your door, or if you ever are approached by one, probably won't come to your door anymore. They don't usually do that too much anymore. But if you ever are approached by one, the simple thing you can ask them is, hey, how come you guys don't celebrate birthdays? And you won't get a quick answer. Right away, they're going to go, well, there's only 2 mentions of the celebration of a birthday in the Bible, and in both cases, they were birthdays of a pagan, obviously not a worshiper of Jehovah. They were pagans, and something terrible happened. One of them was the birthday of Herod, I think King Herod, and he asked for, as a birthday gift, he asked for John the Baptizer's head on a plate, and that's what he got. That was his birthday gift. So of course they're taking something that happened completely out of context. That doesn't mean that Jehovah God doesn't like birthdays. It's completely ridiculous to jump to that conclusion, but that's what they do. They have made a hard and fast rule. No, we're not celebrating birthdays anymore. Again, this is the identification of a cult. You don't want to ever highlight the importance of the individual. It's only the importance of the group. So they eliminated the importance of an individual, the individual's birthday celebration. Let's eliminate that. There's no reason for it. There's no biblical reason why a birthday is not celebrated. And they will disfellowship you. So if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you decide, you go to the elders and say, you know what? I've prayed about it. My conscience is not bothered by celebrating my birthday. I'm having birthday celebrations at my house, and I'm inviting all of you. You can come. You don't want to celebrate it with me? That's fine. There's nothing in the Bible that says I can't do it. There's no direct command. There's not even really a principle in the Bible that points towards a birthday as being something that God does not approve of. See what happens. You'll be disfellowshipped. And will you be disfellowshipped scripturally for celebrating a birthday? No, you'll be disfellowshipped for arguing and going against the counsel of the leadership or the elder body. That's what you'll be disfellowshipped for. So they may even throw an apostasy in there. They'll say, "Oh, you're to be an apostate with that viewpoint." So, yeah. So this is something I've had in my mind for a long time to discuss. Baptism. my baptism that led to me eventually having to be in the situation where, I was disfellowshipped. I had no desire to come back. Still don't. Um, there might have been maybe a brief amount of time where I thought about it only because of the emotional blackmail. I do care about my family. I would have liked to have had a relationship with my parents. They're good people. They're not terrible people. They're brainwashed. They're indoctrinated into a cult. They were from a very young age, as I was. Um, and I woke up one day. That's it. What woke me up? Um, you know, and doing something bad and being shunned. And I tell you right now, if I wasn't shunned, if the congregation was warm towards me, and I probably would still be in it today. I mean, I might have still been in it today if they had done that. So the shunning actually pushes away a lot more people, and it actually creates apostates. if you want if you want to find the quickest way to create an apostate machine, it's shunning people. That's what creates apostatism. It creates people that are opposed to your religion. And really, if you look at the definition of an apostate, it's all it really is somebody who no longer believes in that religion. That's technically the definition of an apostate. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, they go a step further and say, no, it's somebody who's opposed to God, opposed to the religion. And so, with that in mind, yes, I am happy to say I am an apostate. I'm an ex-Bethelite, ex-ministerial servant, ex-Jehovah's Witness, and I am very much opposed to the Jehovah's Witness religion. That's why I did this channel. That's why I'm hoping to grow it, get more people to watch. I think I have 2 subscribers so far. I think 7 people have viewed it. So yeah, there's been a few people watching it. I'm going to reach out to John Cedars and maybe a couple other channels and just see if I can get more assistance in getting some recognition of my channel. Maybe I can be interviewed by one of them. That would probably be helpful. Maybe relating my experiences on their channel. So yeah, I'll keep you guys informed on that. But this was a subject that I wanted to get to pretty early in my videos, and I'll probably touch on it again as I think more on it and come up with some other points of reasoning on it that I think are important to relate. But if you're watching this video, if you're not familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, one of the big reasons to me why they're a cult is because of the practice of shunning, which is cutting somebody off completely, not talking to them, not having a relationship with them, solely because they are, not a Jehovah's Witness anymore. Maybe they decide they want to live a different life. Either way, I have 2 young kids. I think what really got me to a point of where I felt like I needed to do this channel and really need to be an apostate is the fact that I have 2 young kids, and there's nothing that would keep me from having a relationship with them. There's just nothing. It certainly wouldn't be a religion. It certainly wouldn't be 7 men up in New York who are completely detached from reality telling me how I should live my life. No way would I ever um, shun my children. I would never. That thought would never come into my mind. In fact, it's an unnatural thing to do. That's why so many witnesses today struggle with having a disfellowship child, or because it's not natural to abandon your child. Showing conditional love is not natural, especially for a mother. For a mother to make the decision that they are cutting off their son or daughter as though they are dead, as though they're dead. And if you don't believe me, go on jw.org and watch the video on shunning. It's disgusting. They show this girl that got disfellowshipped in the congregation. She's living on her own. She tries to call her mother on her cell phone. The mother looks at the call and just puts it down. It's disgusting. That is what those 7 men or 8 men, whatever they are, 10 men up in New York are promoting. It's evil, evil propaganda, and it destroys families. It destroyed my family. I know my parents aren't happy. I know they're not. I can guarantee you they are suffering from this religion, this cult. They'll never admit it. I'm sure they go to meetings and put on that smile and act like everything's fine. But how can it be? How can it be fine? They have no relationship with their oldest son. I wouldn't be fine with it. I can tell you that much. I have 2 kids I love to death. I would never treat them the way I've been treated. So that's how I know it's a cult. And I just remember when I first left, they would say, "Well, how do you know it's the they would always say, it's the truth. You know it's the truth." Well, you know how I know it's not the truth? Because of the creation of shunning and how unnatural it is. There's no way, if there is a God, I profess to be agnostic, which means I'm not going to say there isn't a God. I don't know if there is. But if there is, he certainly is not going to endorse the Jehovah's Witness religion, because it's an unloving religion. It's completely unloving. And believe me, just talk to people that have left. They'll tell you. That's all you got to do. So that's my video on baptism and shunning. I wanted to get this out. I know I've kind of rambled. I probably should edit my videos one of these days. But I wanted these videos to be sort of off the top of my head, what I'm thinking, or the thoughts I've had for quite a while. So I appreciate everybody that is watching this video. If you haven't already, please like and share my video. That's how my channel will grow. Please comment. Let me know what you think. Would love to get some feedback. And I appreciate everybody that took the time to watch this video. And I'll probably get my next video out maybe in the first of the year, maybe in January. I'll do another video. So look for that. I'll send out, there'll be a notification sent out on that. Hope everybody has a great end of the year, a great Merry Christmas. I know the witnesses love that. Have a great time with your family. Enjoy the time off and be safe out there. And I'll see you in January. Thanks, everybody.